evening to you all. Hope you are well. It is time, of course, for another Sunday night live stream. And tonight, the topic up for discussion is tomato varieties. What are favourite tomato varieties? What do you like about your tomato varieties? What tomatoes do you grow? That is what we want to find out. We're going to find out if anybody is actually in the audience. But while I check that out, I'm going to throw out a question to keep you busy. How many varieties of tomatoes are there in the world? How many different types of tomatoes are there in the world? I'll let you guess and share with us your answers. So first of all, Ballycillian Allotment Man is there saying good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream is there saying good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Scott from Seed to Table Plot 13 is there saying good evening all. Good evening to you. Nathan, Allotted Chef, is there. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Hargrave Gas is there. Evening all. Hope you've had a great week. Good evening to you. Adrian is there saying hello to Richard and all. Good evening to you. Rob is there saying good evening, everyone. Hope you've all had a good day. I hope you've all had a good day, a good week. Stuart Jackson is there. Evening, Richard and Veg Army. Hope you are all staying warm. Good evening to you. Hope you're warm as well. Anna Jones, good evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Kate is there saying good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Stuart, straight in. The tomatoes I am growing are the ones that came in the Supporters Club Black Plus Black Russian. That would have been Supporters Club last year. I haven't sent any out this year yet. I will be, though. Rob is there saying hundreds of thousands. You're not far off, actually. Digwell, over 10,000 varieties, but many are the same. Digwell has got the answer straight away there. Yes, there are over 10,000 varieties of tomatoes in the world. That's a lot of varieties to choose from. Anybody else? Anybody else? I'm not sure if all the comments are coming through because I can see a few people have said some hello to somebody I can't see. Chili Phil's there saying good evening all, just making Christmas leftover pie for dinner. Those Christmas dinners, don't they just take up a lot of our food, a lot of our leftover dinners throughout January? And Stuart says, I'm hoping you will send some out because I don't really want to buy any more seeds. I will be, don't worry. Tomatoes are one I have to send out probably around March, April time. So when I posed this question about what are the varieties or what tomato varieties will you grow, I thought it had it does have a very large scope of different varieties. As we know, there's over 10,000 different types of tomatoes in the world. But not only that, there are also different styles of tomatoes. So we got cherry tomatoes, we got plum tomatoes, grape tomatoes, Roma tomatoes, Sarmazo tomatoes, beefsteak tomatoes. You got cordons, you got indeterminate and determinate. There's a lot of different things that cope with what tomatoes you would grow. So Rob says, did you see Digwell saying hello to Brian? Yeah, that's the one that threw me because I can't see Brian anywhere. That threw me for a minute. So I think what we should do first of all is just throw it out there. What is your favorite variety of tomato? What tomato variety do you have to grow? And for me, one variety of tomato that I have to grow every year, it's not necessarily my favorite. It is the Crimson Crush tomato, because of the blight resistance that it shells out. I try and grow many different types of tomatoes every year, but I find the Crimson Crush for me to be most reliable because of the fact that we get so much blight. There are things we could do, of course, JBA blight guard to prevent blight, but I find that Crimson Crush just guarantees that I get decent tomatoes. My screen's just gone blank and I don't know what's happened there. Hopefully you're still there. I don't know. Oh, it looks like I've crashed. What's going on? Oh no, what's going on? Sorry. Are you still there? Because my screen just went funny for a moment there. My main screen just died out. Anyway, hopefully you are still all out there, and I just have to try and soldier on with a dodgy screen. Where were we? Where were we? Where were we with the comments? So, what is your favourite variety of tomato? I want to throw that out there because I'm sure everybody has a particular choice. Where were we? Nicola is there saying, hello, Richard and all. Enjoying my electric throw. Hopefully, have heating and hot water by next week after 4 years of without. I'm hoping you get worst possible time to not have heating and hot water. I've got to say, it's so cold at the moment. Rob says, Brian is me. Joke with Digger. Okay, that's what threw me. Digger says, I have 43 varieties to grow this year. Most to sell, maybe 20 for me. This is the trouble, isn't it? There's so many different varieties, and I think there's some varieties that are better than others, depending on where you are grown in your location, etc. But there's almost too many to choose. I mean, even 20 different tomato plants takes up a lot of space. Turbo Stream says, no idea about tomatoes. The last lot got the dreaded blight, and I'm hugely keen on them. I tend to buy the cherry ones occasionally when I do fancy a few. Yeah. I mean, I like cherry tomatoes. I like growing tomatoes in hanging basket. I mean, blight seems like a good opportunity to talk about, or an opportunity to talk about blight, because blight is a problem. I suffer badly with blight every year, which is why I have to go for blight resistant varieties. But one of the ways, apart from growing blight resistant varieties, I also grow tomatoes in hanging baskets, and that tends to avoid blight as well. So there are other things we can do, not just blight resistance. I don't eat enough to be worth the effort of growing them. I find that hard to believe. Tomatoes for me are something we have to try and grow a lot of. We like to freeze a load of tomatoes to make passata, chopped tomatoes for our curries and stews as well. So I'm guessing if you don't eat those sort of things, it's probably not for you. A lot of people do grow tomatoes just to eat fresh, but I like to grow them for the freezer as well. Don't forget to label, says Nicola. Of course, labeling is something, as I say time and time again, is so important. I label before I sow the seeds, so I always know what seeds are what. Just having a quick swig of coffee. What have we got? We can see Richard Golden is there, still here. Sorry, lovely to see you. Can see you. Thank you. So I had a panic there. Toby Stream says, I do accept that homegrown will taste better. Of course they will. I have to say though, farmer, if you go to a farmer shop and get some decent tomatoes from a farmer shop, they taste pretty good these days. Scott says, I like to grow beefsteak tomatoes. They seem to have more flesh to seed ratio, which is true. Beefsteak are a much more fleshier, larger tomato. I do like to grow beefsteaks as well. I think they are great on a nice sandwich, and I think they are great for passata and things like that. May not have necessarily the best flavour when cooked, but what is your favourite variety? A gardener's nightmare, says Digwell. I need to sort them better at the plant sale. Alphabetically did not work last year. Label. A cheap label on a cheap way to label a plastic pot is a bit of electrical tape with a Sharpie written on it. Turbo Stream, I can't see or hear you, probably because I'm in the kitchen. Andrew Noyce has joined. Evening, one and all. Hey there, Richard. Hello, Andrew. Hope you are well. Stuart says, my favourite tomatoes is Crimson Blush and Black Russian. One small and one beefsteak tomato. The Crimson Blush being a beefsteak. Again, blight resistant. So it's I say blight resistant. That's a bit of a misnomer. But that is a good choice, actually. Black Russian is also a very popular. Is that a black tomato as well, if I remember correctly, or has a black element to it? Nicholas says love small and sweet. So you probably like the cherry tomatoes or the grape tomatoes, which are good choices. Turbo Stream says if I did try again, I would try the cherry type. Love the cherry type. Hargrave, I always try and get Magic Mountain to grow. They did best for me in a very blight probe area, but skin's a bit thick. So Magic Mountain is actually one great for hanging baskets as well. I found them to be a really, really nice one to grow. Very good at resisting blight. Very nice tasting too. But they are more of a trawler. I think one thing I'm going to want to throw everybody out there is, do you know the difference between indeterminate and determinate tomatoes, and how you would grow those differently? I'm going to throw that out there for you guys to answer. Digwell says to Rob, I have red flash, red baron, and red Brunswick sown today, talking about onions. Jenny says, hello, sorry I'm late, cooking dinner. I love growing tomatoes. I have over 80 varieties, so trying to choose carefully this year. This is a trouble. Tomatoes, there's so many varieties, it's hard to know the best one to grow. Rob says, I have only one I know what I'm growing up to now, and that is Crimson Crush. Others I will sort later. Good note. And I'm a big fan of Crimson Crush and got no complaints from me for that. Bethan says, evening all, I grew Rosella for a few years and they were a lovely cherry tomatoes. I now grow Sweet Million instead, as more fruit per truss, but they are an F1. So here we go. We're getting some different ideas of different types of tomatoes, cherries, Rosella and Sweet Million. This is what I really want to get out. Has anybody, I'm going to throw this out there, I'm throwing lots of questions your way at the moment, aren't I? Grape tomatoes. Has anybody had much success growing grape tomatoes? The idea of grape tomatoes is they grow a bit like a bunch of grapes and you just pick the tomatoes off the bunch as and when they are ready. I tried growing them once. I didn't get on very well with them. Andrew says we try to grow several varieties, cherry and regular sized ones, and a third called Croatia Volva Saraka, translated as Oxwin Heart, a rather large variety. Fantastic, fantastic. What is it about your favourite varieties that you like? Ballycillian says Crimson and Cocktail Crush. Not heard of Cocktail Crush, actually, for Polytunnel, and Outside Tumbling Tom for hanging baskets, and Veranda Red for pots on my shelves. Again, Tumbling Tom's tomatoes are a good choice. Cocktail Crush, never heard of. Crimson Crush, you know I love them. They're good outside though, the Crimson Crush, and I'm guessing the Cocktail Crush would be good outside. But again, that's another thing. Indoors and outdoor tomatoes is a difference. Jenny says some of those 80 I would never grow again. No taste or thick skin. Which ones were those that you would never grow again? Probably, I mean, I said I would never grow, what was the variety? Mini Bell again. I've just looked at it because of the thick skin, but I've actually planted a Mini Bell in my thing behind me, my hydroponics that we were talking about, because I had the seed. I probably wouldn't do Mini Bell again because the thick skin is so thick, but I had to do it. Anna says outdoor types only for me. I grow Outdoor Girl, Gardener's Delight, and Tumbling Tom Red. Good idea, actually. I've not heard of Outdoor Girl, or I've heard of Gardener's Delight. Say Gardener's Favourite, isn't it? It's a very commonly known one. I think because it is so productive, has fairly good flavour, and is what you might call, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's a strong contender for one of the best in the garden as an all-rounder. And Tumbling Tom, of course, we all love Tumbling Toms. I mean, Oxen's Heart, damn spell check. I thought it meant Oxen, but hey ho. Digwell, they say that blight new mutations were affecting the Crimson family last year. Well, this is something, well, I said earlier about blight varieties. There was something I did say or hesitated to say. Blight strains do change year on year that affect us, a bit like flu. We get different strains that affect us year on year, and some of these may affect us in the coming years as well. So what might be blight resistant this year may not be blight resistant to a strain we get next year. This again is why I like to try and grow different varieties of tomatoes to try and see what does best. Turbo Stream says, I meant to say last week, I sowed a few onions on New Year's Eve, and they had just poken up after a week on the windowsill above a radiator. Excellent, excellent. Love to see a photo of that. My tomatoes are doing really well at the moment. Jenny says purple Cherokee is her favourite tomato. I've not heard of that one. It's a stunner. That's good. That's good. Chili Kate, I think she comes to the same realization I have. I've come to realize that we can only grow blight-resistant varieties on the allotment. This year will be mostly Najina for plum, for sauces, and trying Consello cherry and a few Lizano salads. This is my realization as well. We can use stuff like JBA blight guard to try and prevent getting blight, but blight resistant varieties seem for me a little bit stronger contender, less work to do, but there are other things we could do to try and prevent blight. Ernie, hello, my friend. Not seen you for a long time. Ernie says, good evening, Richard and viewers. Long time no see. How are you? Sadly, I found out recently I can't eat tomatoes as they're too acidic and their seeds cause diverticulitis. I've never heard of that, so you're going to have to apologise for that. But lovely to see you. I'm very well. Hope you are well too. Kate says, I struggled with tomatoes last year, didn't ripen well at all. Last year, 2024, was a difficult year for tomatoes, I've got to say. We didn't really get the summer sun that tomatoes need to really get some good, sweet tomatoes. So I'm not surprised to have struggled. I was surprised we actually got tomatoes, but I did do quite a few early, kept them well watered, and we did all right with tomatoes, especially out in the garden. But we did all right. We did all right. Stuart says, yes, it's a black one. Same seeds from last year because I couldn't find them in the garden centre. That happens. That does happen. Jenny says, I don't worry about blight resistant. I grow it if I want to try it. I love trying new ones and growing what I love. Yeah, I mean, this is a trouble. Blight resistant is a bit of a problem. Luckily, we usually only suffer from late blight, and it doesn't really affect until we usually get some tomatoes from our things, but JB, it's just a pain in the arse blight. Digwell says, I do, yes. Did I ask you to marry me or something there? Not got a clue. Bethan says, I grew a lovely beefsteak tomato the year before last. It was pink German, grew lovely outside, and I was gutted at the thought I had more seeds. It turns out I didn't. I didn't save the seed. That's always the way, isn't it? Sometimes you find a really good variety, but you can never find the seed again. I've noticed, actually, some of our seeds, our usual seed suppliers, the seeds are down this year. There's not as much choice, not just on tomatoes, on many other things. I've just realised I haven't checked Instagram. Better check on Instagram. Few people joining in there, but nobody's saying anything. Apologies. I will keep an eye on Instagram and see how we go. Kevin Kelly says, Alice's Dream. They look and taste fantastic. I've not heard of these. We should be really taking notes, shouldn't we? Or we have to go back and watch this show once again to find out what tomatoes everybody is liking. Nicholas says, I'm hoping to have my polytunnel up this year, so hopefully we'll have better luck with fruit ripening. Blight an issue with Cornwall's wet weather. Yeah, I mean, so I am very lucky. I have a greenhouse at home. I have a greenhouse on the allotment, and I've got the second greenhouse on the allotment, which I need to get glazed. So growing tomatoes indoors is a bit of an opportunity, which reduces the risk of blight. But the trouble with tomatoes as well on the outdoor or indoors, excuse me, I don't think they taste as good as tomatoes grown outdoors. Now that might be different depending on the varieties. I think some varieties are better indoors than they are outdoors. This is going to be an experiment we should make a note of, actually, testing what tomatoes taste best when grown outdoors or indoors. Digwell says, human trait for you called the McDonald's syndromes. Of all the varieties I grow, it is the common or garden ones that sell first because people know what they are and like them, even if I have better ones. This is it. This is it. This is why garden centres only really sell a certain certain varieties of tomatoes because they are going to sell, and they can try and throw some unusual ones in the bag as well. It doesn't always work because we're used to the Gardener's Delight, things like that. But I think sometimes it just needs a bit of encouragement, a bit of marketing for people to realize the benefit of these. Scott says, I liked Crimson Blush. Grew them last year. Also San Marzano and Sungold I like for taste. Now, last year as well, added to that, I grew a really nice beefsteak tomato. It was a dwarfing beefsteak tomato. So the plant itself only really got that big. And it was called Super Mackenzie or something like that, something really interesting. I've got plenty of those seeds, but they were really good actually as a beefsteak. Nice, tasty, produced well, and decent tomatoes. Super Mimico, something like that. Good tomato, good tomatoes. Rob says, I do like Harry's Italian plum. That's obviously a plum tomato. Digger says, I grow all of my tomatoes outdoors, even if they are indoors. Many say that all outdoor tomatoes taste better. Have I missed something? I'm not sure all the comments are coming through. So if I miss your comment, I do apologise. Bethan says Richard sent me some super marmalade. That's the one I was talking about a couple of years ago in the supporters pack, and they have always done well. That's the very ones I was talking about. They have done very well, actually. I've found. Just going to check over on Instagram. Nothing going on over there. Yeah, super marmalade. I grew those last year, year before. They've done really well, and they taste really, really nice. Stuart says, I was asked yesterday when I sow my tomato seeds because the lady was told to sow now. I said, not yet. Am I correct? Thanks, team. So this is actually a very good question, and it is something that annoys me. Some seed packets, particularly with tomatoes, will tell you to sow in January up until May. And you can sow them in January. But the trouble you will have is that tomatoes are a warm weather crop. They love sun. If it's too cold, they will die. But not just cold, light. That is the other thing. So you could sow them now if you have a heated propagator, if you have grow lights, and if you have a heated greenhouse. I personally, I have to admit, I did sow some tomatoes on Monday. More as an experiment because I'm doing this thing where AI wrote a list of seeds to sow every week for 2025 and we're following that. But normally I would recommend, unless you have a heated greenhouse, I would recommend waiting until about March to sow your tomatoes. The reason being is that the light levels can cause the tomatoes, especially at the moment, to either get long and leggy, which is no good, or they can get too big by March and you have not got anywhere to pot them. So I hold on to about March. Ballycillian also says March for me, Stuart. Robs also agrees with Stuart and says he would wait until February as well. Digwell says, guys, please try JBA Blight Guard if you suffer from blight. I did a side-by-side trial last year. I sprayed one, survived all season. The other one next to it got blight. You keep recommending JBA Blight Guide. I've got to look. I've got to order some. I've got to try it. I will have to say that. Talking about that weird thing I couldn't pronounce, that weird word. Digret says many blight-resistant varieties taste more than bland than others. I agree with that. I do agree with that. Blight-resistant varieties don't taste as good as some of the others, but you're guaranteed a harvest. That's why. That's why I bring it up. Jenny says, I don't like Gardener's Delight. Tastes like a supermarket tomato to me. I grow different size, different colours and different textures, all for different purposes, salad, sauce, sandwiches, etc., etc. Well, this is it. Tomatoes are really diverse. I tend to grow tomatoes for salads, which we tend to use the cherry tomatoes. I grow them for sandwiches, which are the beefsteak tomatoes. I will tend to grow the plum tomatoes for making for the freezer or for making pasta sauce, etc., etc. Same as the San Marzano varieties as well. They tend to be good for um, sauces and stuff like that as well. And then the grape tomatoes, which we haven't had much success with, they're good, meant to be good for crudités and things. Digwa says, you asked me if I know the difference between indeterminate and determinate. I replied, yes, I do. I'm with you now. Apologies. I'm asking too many questions. So what, in your eyes, or how can you explain the difference between indeterminate and determinate? I think that's a good question to ask everybody. Nicholas says, thumbs up, everyone. Please do give us a thumbs up, a like, a follow, and subscribe. Jenny says, Tomato Revolution. Have a fantastic book. I've not seen it myself. Might be a book we need to read. Benno says, evening all. I grow red ones, mainly veg supporters ones. Grandkids nick them, so hardly eat any. Excellent stuff, my friend. Hope you are well. Lovely to see you. Jenny says, I always rewatch YouTube videos for inspiration, ideas, and information. I don't rush my decision. I don't make my decision quickly. It's hard, isn't it? There are, as I said, over 10,000 different varieties of tomatoes. So it's hard to know which one to eat. Anna Jones says, a lot of gardeners on YouTube have been raving about Alice's Dream. Must be a good one. It may be a good one. One of the things I always think it's good to remember, though, is it may be a good one for us, or maybe a good one for them. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a good one for you. I'm not saying there's anything against the information being given at all, but you've got to go in with your own mind as well. Ernie, for sauces, favourite tomatoes for sauces, I think. Gardener's Delight, Steve. Digress says, I grew Alice's Dream for the last 2 years. Nice taste, but not a big producer. There are better. This is what I mean. There may be different conditions which affect tomatoes. So it could be how damp your soil is, how if you've got sandy or clay soil, how much nutrition is in your soil. These are all things that can affect how tomatoes or any vegetable plants act, really. Nathan says Lithium Sunset and Paul Robinson were winners for me last year. Again, great varieties I've never heard of. So, but Rob says Lithium Sunset sounds like a battery. It does have that sort of vibe to it. But hey, I've got to try these out. I'm a real enthusiast for sauces. The meat is just a vehicle to carry the flavour on. Interesting. Yes, for Paul Robson. There we go. Jenny says, a YouTuber sowed her tomatoes using the milk bottle method. They went in an unheated greenhouse. They germinated slowly and grew slowly, but they were so strong and sturdy, produced loads of fruit. So what's the milk bottle method? What is the milk bottle method? I'm guessing it's where you create a milk bottle as a propagator, but please do share more. Stuart says, thank you, team. I was hoping I was correct. Yep, you were correct. As I say, you can sow in January if you have the right opportunities. If you haven't, I wouldn't bother, in my eyes. Sweet peppers, chilies, aubergines, I would bother in January. I think they're like volunteer plants. They always grow stronger. Yeah. Digwell also says blight resistant is only resistant. It's no guarantee of no blight. If a plant does get blight, it slows down the travel along the stem so the fruits can be harvested for longer. This is all very true. Now, Jenny, there we go. I asked the question, what is the difference between indeterminate and determinate? And indeterminate grow to reach the sky. Often leaves are removed to keep to a single stem. Determinate are often called bush tomatoes, like a shrub, more stems, and around 5 footish. So this is one of the problems that I think we have when it comes to choosing tomatoes. There are so many things to choose, not just over 10,000 different varieties, determinate or indeterminate, which basically defines how you would grow them. And did grow also comes determinate tomatoes. The flowers all set and make fruit at the same time-ish, so 1 or 2 big harvests. There's also an element that one of these doesn't need supports. They can stand on their own. There's lots of different factors in these. Bush tomatoes and cordon tomatoes is the way I like to think of it. But these are one of the factors that rolls in when you're trying to choose what tomatoes you want to grow, and whether you want to tie them in or not, and things like that. Some are better, some are different. Idaho, hello, Richard and everyone. I have hit the thumbs up on the way in. Lovely to see you, Idaho. Hope you are well. Scott says, I always see people growing Brad's atomic grapes, and I see other Brad's type. They look amazing, but how do they taste? Has anyone grown them before? I've grown them before, atomic grapes anyway. They taste nice. They do taste nice. Lots of seeds in them. I think one year Digger actually sent me a load of seeds from members of a supporters club. Just needed a quick swig of coffee. Anna says one stops at growing at a definite size, determinate or bush trailing. The other indeterminate just keeps growing. Again, this is where there's so much information about these two different types. Up the plots this year in the greenhouse, I'm only growing dwarf and micro dwarf varieties. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Digwell says indeterminate flowers produced in trusts one at a time, so a long growing season. Again, very, very true. Jenny says, yes, like a mini greenhouse, you sow early and germination happens when ready. Cut the top off, compost the seeds and water in, seal back up if needed. Condensation keeps them damp. Okay, not heard of it before. Like and determinate to 1E and 2E potatoes, all grow on the same level and do not need support hilling up. Yeah. Again, it can get very complicated, and this is why we've got so much choice when it comes to tomatoes. We need to work out how we want to grow them as well. So that leads me into the next question. What is your best technique for growing tomatoes? For me, the best technique, I've got to say, is growing cherry tomatoes in hanging baskets. They do need a lot of water, daily watering, unless you set up a watering system, but they are so easy in that sense. I try and feed once a week once they start flowering with a tomato feed. That goes for all my tomatoes. Yeah, what is your best technique for growing tomatoes? Jenny said, Brad Atomic tastes great, but plants always look pathetic. Nicholas says, I saw in a video that an allotment holder grows tomatoes outside but uses a polycarb roof to help protect them. Seemed a good idea. That sounds like the peach tree covers that Victorian gardeners used to put over their peach trees that were wall trained, little bits of glass. It just kept the rain off the plants, but encouraged the plants to grow at the same time. Just having a quick check over on Instagram. Nothing going on over there. Scott says, I found that in starting out gardening, bush types were better as you don't have to worry about pinching out side shoots. That is true. That is true. Again, that's the difference between indeterminate and determinate. Did grow indeterminate likened to MC potatoes. They grow up the stem, so need support. Yeah. Jenny says, I sow most of my flowers using milk bottle method. Might try tomatoes this year. Yeah, not a bad idea. I'd love to see how it turns out for you, Jenny. So I said about best technique. What is your best technique for growing tomatoes? What is your best compost? Do you grow tomatoes in pots, in the greenhouse, or in the ground? I do a mix of all of these. I will grow some in my greenhouse because I like growing in the greenhouse and it produces earlier crops. Better crops may not be as sweet tasting as outdoor ones, but it works. Outdoors, they're grown in the ground and some in pots as well, especially when I'm trying to test different composts. One of the things I did last year with those super marmalade was I tried them in different types of compost. So I used the compost that we get from the range for £2.50 a bag. I used that for one pot. Another one I had Hearts of Eden and another multi-purpose compost, and another one Rocket Grow multi-purpose compost. Now the Hearts of Eden and Rocket Grow actually had very same results. The range compost, it grew stronger earlier and quicker, but the tomatoes suffered with blossom end rot. And that's where you get rotting on the end of the tomatoes, usually due to a calcium deficiency. So what that told me is that, yes, we could grow decent, strong plants inside the compost from the range, which isn't necessarily a growing compost, it's more of a soil improver, but you get blossom end rot. Whereas the other two, not quite as strong plants, a little bit later behind, but we got perfectly good compost. So I was very, very impressed with the difference composts make. Stuart says, well, last year I just put 4 plants on my patio, then 3 in the greenhouse. It seemed to work okay, but the outside ones gave more fruit. So this year, maybe just grow them outside in big plots. I've got to say, blight last year was less of a problem than it has been in years in the past. So something to bear in mind. I would still grow some in the greenhouse, unless they're blight resistant, of course. I tend to grow my non-blight resistant varieties inside the greenhouse because it's just safer. Jenny says, I grow tomatoes wherever I can squeeze one in. All my veg beds are mixed up. If I grow some in pots, they will share the pot with something else. Nothing wrong with that, actually. Something I do like to grow my tomatoes is basil. They're good companion plants. I believe basil is rumoured to sort of improve the flavour of tomatoes, but also the smell of basil deters some pests as well. And the two just go together on the plate, don't they? Tomato and basil. Oh, I fancy some simple tomatoes sliced on a plate, basil leaves pot over them, drizzled in a bit of olive oil, a bit of pepper. Ah, lovely, lovely. Digwa says tomatoes have 2 sets of roots, one feeder, one water taker, which is why tomato collars work so well. Tomato collars. So for those that don't know what tomato collars are, they are basically like a moat that you can pot around, a bit of plastic that slowly drains water into the tomatoes, and they form like a moat around the plant. That's probably the best way of describing it. Just means that you top up that and the water goes straight to where they're needed. Turbo Stream says, my last go at tomatoes I grew out the allotment. I might be tempted with a tumbler type in a hanging basket. Might try in a pot too in my porch. Give the tumbler type in a hanging basket a go, and in your porch. Give them both a go. I think you might be surprised. And I still think that now those trees have been taken out your garden, Turbo, probably going to do much better. Nicola, last couple of years I've grown in the blow away small grow tent. I hate those things. But didn't grow any last year apart from sweet peppers and chilies. Hoping to get my mojo back and we'll have one of my bedrooms as a grow room. How great would it be to have a bedroom as a grow room? Not allowed it. I'm not allowed it. Not in this house anyway. Idaho, I usually grow indeterminate or determinate and dwarf tomatoes in raised beds, micro dwarfs in pots or green stalk, but now I have a newish greenhouse which needs repairs. Looking forward to using. Excellent. Looking forward to seeing how you get on with your greenhouse. Digger, so my tomatoes in Jiffy 7 pellets again this year. Easy to send in the post. I've got loads of Jiffy 7 pellets actually. Well, they Jiffy 7, they were sent to me. Oh, they were the coin. I've really got to use them, is what I'm saying to myself. Really got to use them. Tomato collars. Put the feed in the centre, put the water in the outside ring. Indeedly. Digwell, the tomatoes you sent me last year were great, very healthy, and loved how I could just pop them in. I did better with my outdoor tomatoes than the ones in the greenhouse. Absolutely. But Rob also says, convert your attic like I have done. I'm tempted, actually. I'm very tempted to start growing in my attic. My attic is a mess at the moment, but I'm tempted because my kitchen, my grow lights, my propagators at the moment in the kitchen are just full of young plants already. Onions, aubergines, chilies. I need to do more. I need to make more space. I did want to have a new shed put up, but not got around to it because I wanted to heat it anyway, but not got around to it. I did not know that about roots and root collars, Diggrass, says Idaho. It's amazing what you learn on this show, isn't it? Amazing what you learn. Diggrass says, Mojo will come, especially when you see a bit of progress. I agree. Once you get stuck in, mojo comes back. I think last year was a hard year for everyone. Last 5 years have been hard for everyone, let's face it. Stuart says, I mix multi-purpose compost with homemade in my large pots. Once they are at the right size, I always water from the bottom. So watering from the bottom is basically, if you're growing them in pots, pot the water in the saucer and let that soak on up through the compost, which is how I do most of my seedlings. When they're in the ground, it's hard to water from the bottom though, isn't it? You've got to water. You just want to make sure you don't splash water on the leaves. I think it's probably an important thing. Digra says, lose the missus, she's hindering your growing. Do you want to tell her that? I'm not going to tell her that. Jenny says, I've grown indeterminate tomatoes in strawberry bags. It's actually something I haven't thought about. Not strawberry bags, grow bags. But anyway, trying to plant along the old washing line, work great, clean fruits, lots of air around them, and easy to pick. Shows you can grow anywhere. Yeah, I think a strawberry bag's the type that you hang up on the wall and meant for growing strawberry plants, but grow bags as well. As a kid, I grew all my tomatoes, all my cucumbers in grow bags. But I can't do it anymore. I just don't think grow bags have enough compost and have enough oomph in them to really be successful. And if they're on a patio, well, I find that they dry out really, really quickly in the sun. If they're on the ground, well, you might as well plant them in the ground instead of buying grow bags. I don't know. What's everyone's thoughts on grow bags? I've used a grow bag in a long time thinking about it. Nicholas says, I only have myself to tell off and I don't. Do potting up seed trays on ground sheet in lounge before. We'll do again this year. My attics are bedrooms. Yeah. See, I'm sowing seeds on the kitchen table at the moment, which isn't very popular with my wife because I make so much mess. But hey, it works, isn't it? It works. Scott says, will tomato work in straw bales? I think they will, but I'm going to throw that out there to anybody that has had more experience in straw bale gardening. Stuart says, I love the fact that Dick Digwell is very brave tonight for Amanda. Yeah. I just want to see if he's going to tell her that. Jenny says, yes, the strawberry bags hung off each fence post down the old garden, wire from the post to the long washing line. Interesting. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Just checking Instagram, sorry. Now, Digwell says, not advertising, but you did tell us to. You know, I did. I don't mind. I did a video last year on tomato growing tips and myths. Top tomato tips, myths busted and secrets revealed. There we go. Go check that out when you finish this podcast. This isn't a podcast, it's a live stream. When you finish this live stream, go check out that on the Digwell's YouTube channel. Grow bags okay when on the hose lock thing. Digwell has one. Yeah, they do. I just find they need a lot of water. There's not a huge amount of room for the roots to really thrive. But I'm thinking of a greenhouse on the allotment, they might turn out quite well. Digwell, he lives 100 miles away, so he escapes Amanda's wrath. Nicola, I've emptied grow bags and perlite and feed, then put on the hose lock water reservoir. Prefer the later model with a planter tray on top of the reservoir. Yeah, the hose lock, they do a thing that you attach to their pipes, their hoses, which keeps the grow bags hydrated. But they can get a little bit expensive, can't they, when you start growing like this? And compared to growing in the ground, I still think growing in the ground is much better with better results. Just going to have a swig of my coffee. Trying to think. What's anybody? So I tell you what, let's throw this out here now. We've listed quite a few different tomato varieties earlier that everyone was their favorite. But do you have a favorite for in a greenhouse or polytunnel growing indoors? Let's throw that out there and see what anybody comes back with. Bob says grow bags are a crazy price now. I haven't looked at them in years, so I couldn't tell you. Richard says, I think Amanda's brilliant. I've just realised how far away I live from you. yeah, you're playing it safe there. I have to say she's brilliant. Digwell, a hose lock bag supports holds enough water for a week or so for 3 plants. Interesting. I've seen them. I guess if you're on a patio, then it kind of, if all you got is a patio, it makes sense. So it could work. So different course of different people. It's the same with Vegepod, isn't it? Vegepod's not for everyone, but I love them. Autopot as well. I love the Autopots. May not be for everyone. Nicholas says raised beds in polytunnel. So what's your favourite tomatoes in the polytunnel? Bethan says my tomato plants didn't do well last year. I didn't pot them on enough or plant them out so at the right time. So I think they stunned and never really got going. Yeah. I've got to say, I am trying to make sure I pot on plants or sow seeds on a daily basis to try and keep up with it, because there's a lot of plants, a lot of seeds that really do need a lot of growth. Digbert says, I had some grow bags from Marshall's last year and the instructions said to use the bag standing upright. Very good results for me. I have heard that actually. They recommend that instead of laying grow bags down that way, you actually turn them so the thinner end faces up, and that gives the roots more room to grow. I'm trying to think who told me that, but again, I've not tried it myself. Not something I intend to try, but it's something to think about. Certainly is something to think about. Nicholas says, I'm getting some green stalk towers, expensive, but they're good for tumbling toms and strawberries. Can do link irrigation. I've not seen green stalk towers, so I'll be interested to see what they are. Rob says, I've heard of people cutting grow bags in half, then stand on end. I've heard that as well, actually. It's not a bad idea. But then you only get 2 instead of the 3 plants they recommend for those. How many people actually grow in grow bags then? How many of you actually grow in grow bags? Jenny says, with tomatoes in grow bags, I tend to use a bottomless pot for each plant to give extra room. Horizon do sideways bags as well. Interesting. I used to do the bottomless pots as well. It was a good way, actually, even growing in the ground. I found the chickens didn't attack my tomatoes when they were in bottomless pots. I wonder if it works on dogs as well. Your master potatoes, time for toms. Nicola, that's exciting. I've been looking at the green stalks too. I've not heard of them, not seen them. I'm going to have to look them up and see how they get on. Right, I am just going to quickly cut away for a quick break, because last week you sent me, what was it? The recipe for the week to be rice pudding. We got talking about rice pudding. So last night I made some rice pudding. Okay, so this week's recipe for this week is to make one of my favourites, rice pudding. And I'm going to make it in my trusted slow cooker. So let me show you how I'm doing it. So here's my slow cooker, and I've already put a load of butter just around the pan, just to stop everything from sticking. Now the first ingredient I'm going to stick in here is long grain rice. I spent absolutely ages trying to find pudding rice. I went to several different supermarkets to find it. Normally I see it all over the place, couldn't find it. 25 grams of good old caster sugar, nothing difficult about that. Then we have here a pint and a quarter, or 750 mils of whole fat milk. That just goes in there like so. We're then going to grate in some fresh nutmeg, because we like fresh nutmeg here, except when that happens. We won't tell Amanda that happened. That should just about do. We're going to put that onto low for 3 or 4 hours, and then we'll come back and see how it's turned on. Let's put the lid on, of course. Okay, this has been nearly 4 hours now. I checked on it half an hour ago and I felt it needed a little bit longer. Now it's probably gone a little bit overdone, but hey, it probably is going to taste absolutely fine. Right, so first things first, the rice pudding on its own. That is lovely actually. But to add a bit more flavour to it, I'm going to add some jam. Doesn't really need it, but it tastes absolutely lovely nonetheless. I'm going to give that 8 out of 10. That's good. Back to the studio. I'm going to finish this off. So it was a nice simple rice pudding recipe. I've actually got some left over. Haven't warmed this up. I thought I'd try it cold because sometimes rice pudding I find is better once it's had when it's cold. Oh, that is good. That is good. Oh, that is, sorry, that is good. I can't eat too much of this. Oh, that is good. Yum, yum, yum. Rice pudding. Thank you so much, whoever recommended that. I am, of course, on a diet, so I am trying to be good. But that was good. That is good. It's even better when cold, though. That's a crazy thing. Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. So I give that 8 out of 10. Cold, I'm going to give that 9 out of 10, actually. But what do you want me to cook next week? So, where were we? Digger says, pudding rice tends to be hard to find these days. Whenever I look in the rice section, I used to always see it. Admittedly, I very rarely go shopping these days, but pudding rice I just could not find. Luckily, just simple long grain rice was just as good, or could be used instead. Or risotto rice would be used as well. But that was absolutely fine. I use grow bags to bury the cover on my old polytunnels, so weights and growing space in the same space. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Nicola's been waiting 5 years to get a grow stalk thing. Idaho says, I love the grow stalks. They work well for me. I've grown lettuce, spring onions, snap peas, dwarf green, bush beans, bush cucumbers, charred peppers, chilies, and micro dwarf tomatoes. I've not heard or not seen them in all honesty, but that's not surprising. A green stalk is on my wish list. Love homemade rice pudding and semolina. Better than shop tin, over sweet and watery. Needs rose hip syrup on jam. Yeah, I mean, most things, if we can make it ourselves, it's always better than anything we buy from a shop. The only difference is time. It's so making that rice pudding it was easy, 4 hours in a slow cooker, but I was getting on and doing things at the same time. But hey. Chili Cake says, the rice pudding looks amazing. I can highly recommend a strip of lemon zest using a potato peeler while it cooks. Oh, I try that. I will try that next time. I always put jam in my rice pudding too. Childhood memories. Yeah, it's because I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to be good, but at the same time, not waste anything too. My pudding hasn't arrived yet. Did you send it? Oh yeah, I sent it last week. Should be with you by now, Jenny. Rice pudding and jam, love it. I'm hungry now. I'm sorry. I've got it sat right in front of me. It's making me hungry, but I'm being good. I'm losing weight. I'm being good. Rob says, love cold rice pudding. Don't they? It's lovely. Idaho has several videos about growing in greenstock. I would check them out. I've never heard of them, in all honesty, so I would check them out. Nice made with cream into it, Richard. We didn't have any cream. With whole fat milk, keep it simple. I'm sure cream would work, but hey. I love rice pudding. Digwell says, Ambrosia sell it cold in pots. Yeah, they do. They do, don't they? But yeah. Bellows, we always stirred the jam in to turn it pink whenever we got it in school. Excellent. Excellent. Jenny says, what have you got to harvest, Richard? That's a good question, actually. I have started since the beginning of 2025 on a Tuesday. It should be. I think I was a little late this week. Each week I'm sharing what I've harvested that week. So last week was, or the recent one that came out on the website was eggs, salad leaves, and herbs. This week we've got some leeks, parsnips, and ginger added to the mix as well. I've harvested my ginger. So it'd be good to do something with ginger if anybody's got any ideas, actually. What else have we got? We got Brussels sprouts and cabbage and kale as well that we could harvest. So just throwing those ideas if you're looking for a recipe. Looking in the baking section. Oh, well, what ambrosia? Love it made with evaporated milk. I've not tried that actually. It's sweet. It's much sweeter, isn't it? Evaporated milk. Could you cook parsnip soup? I could if that's what everyone wants. Remember to hit the thumbs up, everyone. Yeah, please do hit that thumbs up, like and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification so that you know when we go live. Digworth says £150 for a 7-tier green stalk planter. The only ones I've seen on YouTube are on channels where they were given one. LOL. I'll have a look at that. Parsnip soup sounds good, says Anna. That's why I'm waiting, Digworth. Apparently they are trying to come to the UK. I will have to check them out. They might be at press event in a couple of weeks' time. Let's see what they're there. Parsnip and ginger soup. Oh, there we go. They're sold in many places. Where was that? Who's selling? Talking about these things. So I meant the costs down when made in the UK. Yeah, what was that? I'll look for rice pudding in the baking section. Pudding rice in the baking section. I did. I looked everywhere. I hate going to supermarkets at the best of times, but I looked everywhere. It annoyed me. I couldn't find it, so I just went for long grain rice. There's a place in Bolton, I think, that apparently makes these. This week I harvested ice cubes from my water butt. It was massive. There's been a lot of ice this week, hasn't there? Even we got a frost, a heavy frost. We even got snow, just a brief covering in snow, but we did get snow, which is so unusual here. It's unusual to get a frost, but certainly last couple of days, a heavy frost on the allotment. I made a parsnip and ginger soup once. Could hit both. So what does everybody think about parsnip and ginger soup? Is that something we could do for next week's recipe? It seems to be a popular choice. We certainly have lots of parsnips to use up, so I think we could certainly do that. I'm going to have another mouthful of this rice pudding. It's there teasing me. Yum, yum, yum. Sorry, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't talk with my mouth full. So coming back to this conversation for tomatoes, we were talking about all the different types of tomatoes. What would you say if you had to choose, or what would be hard, isn't it, to try and phrase this question? We've got grape tomatoes, plum tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, and beefsteak tomatoes. What would be your choice? What would be your choice if you could only grow one of that particular type of tomatoes? What would be your choice? My watch was going off there. Idaho says, I made parsnip and carrot soup. It was good. I think I had a little bit of ginger in it. I might still have some carrots, actually. I'm not sure. Jenny says, -8 degrees here one night. Other nights, -6. Think we are warming now a little. I believe it's going to get warmer over this coming week. I'll be glad for it. I mean, having a nice, hard, crisp frost has been nice, I have to say. But we could do with more. Digwell says, that sounds good. I need to lift some parsnips, but I'm cooking loads of Chinese stuff at present. Oh, I wonder if you could use parsnips in Chinese recipes in some way. I don't know. I doubt it, but do like a good Chinese. I haven't had Chinese in a long time. I'm not going to have a Chinese for a while either. Damn you. Nicholas says that's where my shopping cart is. They now do a mixed tower on wheelbase 225, I think. I'm not seeing them, so I don't know where it is. Chili Cat says we've been harvesting Brussels sprouts, which gives me the question. They are starting to blow. Are they still okay to eat? Yes, they are. But I would harvest them all as quick as possible. And they freeze quite well, to be honest with you. But they are still edible. You can even eat as well the tops, the leaves of Brussels sprouts, the very top. They are edible too. So plenty of food from one plant. Turbo Stream, we have been frozen for about 10 days now. Hopefully it will reduce a few pests this year, improve the soil conditions. That's what I'm hoping as well, actually. I think one of the problems we had last year was we had a very mild winter, which didn't kill off any of the pests. For me, it's rare that we really get a cold temperature. So this cold snap we're having at the moment is quite exceptional, but I'm very, very thankful for it. Cherry tomatoes every time. I love to eat them straight from the plant. Good answer. My choice would be plum tomatoes, best all-rounder in the kitchen. I have to agree with you there. I would be like plum tomatoes, best all-rounder in the kitchen because you can use them for so many different things. I agree there. I made some ice cream this week with single cream and condensed milk and frozen fruit. Yummy. Haven't made ice cream in ages. Love ice cream. We got 2 degrees at the moment in Leicester. Well, I'm not sure what the temperature is here, but I can't see anything. Digwell says best big tomato, pink brandy wine. Interesting. Best cherry tomato, Santiam Sunrise. Oh, that sounds lovely. Rebecca says, sorry for lateness. I shall catch up later. I hope everyone is keeping warm and well. Lovely to see you, Rebecca. Hope you're keeping warm and well. We've been discussing what is your favourite tomato variety. Jenny says, Digwell, good choice. I like all the brandy wines. And Digwell, best salad tomato, Rose de Burn. Nicholas says, I just want to heat in my home, then I won't mind a cold snap. With solar battery panels, should make it cheaper to have my grow room. Yeah, I mean, I'm in awe that you're not got heating in this temperature. I'll be honest with you, Nicola. You must be frozen. Jenny says, very delicious. Did you like yours? Yes, very delicious. Did you like yours? What was that? Was that to somebody else? It can get confusing sometimes on this end. Have we got tomato food? That is a question I want to ask you actually. What is your favorite tomato food? What do you find the best for feeding your tomato plants? And what recipe do you love doing with your homegrown tomatoes? I'm going to throw that into 2 different questions. Digwell says best plum tomato for cooking, Arnish paste, and Britain's breakfast. Breakfast tomatoes as well. It was lovely, Jenny. We'll definitely make it. Talking about conversation going on there. Sorry. Digwell, best cluster tomato risotto, mate. Cluster tomatoes basically being the grape tomatoes as well. Over on Instagram, the messy allotment tier has joined. Hope you are well. Lovely to see you. Having technical issues slightly, so I'm trying to keep an eye on Instagram at the same time. If I miss you, apologies for that. Rob Amish. Is it Amish paste is good? I've not heard of it. I'd love to try some of these. And the best for market is Tumbler. That sounds good. That sounds absolutely good. Nick, I've done it for 4 years. Last year was quite mild. Electric throw blanket, cheap to run. Heat the person, not the home. Dehumidifier helps too. Do you think if I got a beehive, it would keep the grandkids away from my veg? I tell you what, Beddoes, it is one way of keeping the grandkids away from your veg. A beehive, or you tell them that you've peed all over the plants as well as a way of feeding the plants, and I'm sure that'll stop the grandkids from eating your veg if you tell them you've peed all over it. Chili Cake says she uses Maxi Crop as her favourite plant feed for tomatoes. Interesting. I'm trying to think what I've got so many different ones that I it's hard to choose a favourite one. Very hard to choose a favourite one. Envy, these ones up here are quite good, which you probably can't quite see. And Boost does quite well as well. But yeah, Maxi Crop is quite good as well, says Rob. And Rebecca says, I never minded what food as I've never done a comparison. Ah, fair enough. So you never compared what tomatoes that you have. Sean Kickley over on Instagram. I fed my tomatoes with comfrey tea plus plenty of horse muck, dug into beds any time now. That's a good point, actually. It is coming to that sort of time of year when we do need to start preparing our beds. And plenty of well-rotted horse manure, if you can get hold of it in enough, going into the beds needs to be done. Personally, I'm not using horse manure anymore. I can't really get hold of it. But I do have chicken manure in abundance here at home. So that's what I'm tending to use a lot more at the moment. And it works quite well because obviously we have chickens. What's the best flavour of tomatoes, says Nicola? What is your best flavour of tomatoes? That's a good question to ask everyone as well. Jenny says, great Turbo. It's nice smashed up with chocolate as well. I can't work out what they're talking about there. I'm losing something there. Anna Jones says, Kempack tomato food for me. Fantastic, fantastic. Again, there's so many choices out there. It's hard to know what is the best tomato feed. All I know, perhaps this is an experiment we should do this year, comparing tomato feeds and seeing how they compare to each other. And buying like the cheap tomato feeds from somewhere like a pound shop and seeing how that compares. That's going to be. I'm going to have Jenny. Can you make a note of that? Comparing tomato feeds for me, please. Scott says favorite thing to make with tomatoes: gazpacho, raw chilled tomato soup, so you can really taste tomatoes as they are. So here's a question, because I've never made gazpacho soup. Do you cook the tomatoes to make the soup and then let it cool, or do you just leave it uncooked? Let me know. Let me know. Digwell, that my biggest uses for them: tomato ketchup, big fan of tomato ketchup, homemade tomato ketchup. Bit of mustard goes well in it. Tomato sauces for freezing, tomato bread, pudding, drying as powder, and rings and relishes, and more. Oh, I do love good. You are making me very, very hungry. We were talking ice cream, Richard. Of course you were. Of course you were. That makes sense. Tomato ice cream, would that work? Nicola, I have 2 ponies leaving piles of it over my garden. Chicken and duck poo after being put through the compost bin, a low bottom with deep raised beds. Yeah, you are lucky to have ponies in order for your own horse manure. Digwell, tomato bread pudding. Give it a try. It sounds delicious. We'll add chocolate bits next to ice cream. I use natural grower feed as I know what is in it. I will then use my own homemade feed using nettles, comfrey, weeds, stems, etc. Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that, aren't I? I'm going to have to try and make our own tomato feeds to throw into that. But just testing tomato feeds would be a good one to experiment with this year. Jenny says, I made a note. Thank you. Thank you. Turbo Stream. This week, I also made a tomato bake thing. Oven cooked a few tomatoes with onions, sweet peppers, and N. Not sure. Any feed that meets the needs of Liebig's barrel, but Eschalite 12 is my favourite feed. Interesting, interesting. But what about your favourite recipes that use tomatoes? While you think on that, let's have a look at your photos. These are photos that you've either sent to me or posted in the Facebook group. So TurboStream sent this photo to me, and I've got to say, I just love this photo. It's obviously leeks covered in frost. You know, we have had some heavy frosts over these last couple of days. But when you go and see images like this, it makes me want to go and get out and have a look at it just for the fun of it. I think that looks absolutely amazing. Tame in his email says to me he's a better photographer than he's a videographer, but I got to say, I'm blown away with his photo. Love it. I love it a lot. Now, Stuart Rhubarb is making an appearance. This is very, very early for rhubarb, but it's not unheard of. Rhubarb, of course, is our seed of the month on the podcast. It's one of my favorite things to grow from seed as well. I don't know if anybody's tried or anybody out there has tried growing it from seed. I think Stuart said that he grew from seed last year, but it's so easy to grow rhubarb from seed. Kate's lamb lettuce is in the frost, but still soldering on. Lamb's lettuce is a really hardy vegetable, one that's well worth sowing in late autumn to go throughout the winter as well. And as you can see, they're covered in frost, but they will tolerate it. They will soldier on and continue growing as well. Lamb's lettuce is so hardy, so hardy. Now, Jenny has got these bargain trees from Tesco's. I think it's something like 2 for £12, and I don't think she's the only person that has got them. These are bare-rooted fruit trees, and they often do sell them in supermarkets or Wilko's or the range at this time of year. So if you are looking to get some new trees, it's well worth a visit to try and get hold of some. These are great. I've got to say, I might have to pop into Tesco's and see what I can do myself. Now, Nicola shared these photo that she saw on Facebook. Last week, we were, of course, talking about hydroponics. And while this isn't strictly hydroponics, these are potatoes growing in a hydroponic sort of way. The roots are misted and sprayed every so often with a high feed spray. And as you can see, those potatoes are growing and look incredibly clean. I wonder what has happened there. Steve's tomatoes are flowering in January. I think this is, sorry, I got distracted there. I'll tell you why. Steve's tomatoes are flowering in January. And the tomatoes in their native are perennial. They will grow year on year around. It's just in this country, they do have a tendency to die back because of the cold and the lack of light. So having them flowering in January, he accidentally overwintered these in his greenhouse. It's not unheard of, but the plant itself does look, from what we can see, to be growing quite healthy as well. Just goes to show, sometimes an accident leads to some interesting results. What tomatoes are they, though? Now, please do keep sharing your photos. Post in our Facebook group. You can send to me via social media or email me, richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Digwell says that's called aeroponics. Yes, I was trying to keep it simple for everybody, trying to make it simple for that. This is the one that blew, distracted me. Not had any seeds this month. Don't worry though, still getting Christmas cards. I sent them out 12 days ago, so you should have got them unless they're lost in the post. Keep me posted, please, Bedo. Digwell, just noticed that my horseradish chunk is showing leaves. Yeah, it's up early, isn't it? Love horseradish, fresh horseradish, absolutely delicious. Toby, my rhubarb probably wished it was still dormant. The new tops were well frosted. Honestly, rhubarb is so hardy, it probably won't care. It'll probably take it on the nose and be absolutely fine. But it's always worth mulching your rhubarb anyway as we go into the winter just to protect it. Love the frosted leeks. Great shot. Indeed it was. Indeed it is. And Jenny also says, great photo. Great for a calendar. Yeah, love that photo. Do love that photo indeed. Stuart Jackson says, this week has been great. It made my evening. Watch Richard trying to keep up with the comments. Well done, Richard. It's good fun, isn't it, when we do that? Turbo Stream says, and butternut squash, when the tomatoes were soft and mushy, I added a cracked, something I was talking about earlier. I added a cracked egg on top and baked till the egg was cooked. Lovely, lovely. Scott says, you don't cook, talking about gazpacho soup, you don't cook them, you just marinate them in oil and vinegar with cucumbers and basil, chill them and blitz them, then you can have bread as well as other things like chili and garlic. I'm going to have to try that in the summer. I'm going to have to try gazpacho soup one and see how we get on. My seeds arrived okay, excellent. Find the supermarket trees grow so tall for more than they suggest. Went over to dwarf Lidl trees later in the year. Yeah, I have to admit, I not so much from Tesco's. I bought them some trees like that from would have been Wilco's actually, I think, when that was around. But the tree that grew, it was meant to be an apple tree, but it was a pear tree, so clearly wasn't what it was sold as. Just something to bear in mind if you do buy those. Golden pole tomatoes in that pick. Golden. Oh, that's the variety that has started flowering again. I've not had any seeds yet either, says Bethan. Keep me posted. Keep me posted. Because if you haven't got them by now, I would happily send more out to you. But I would imagine they lost in the post because they should be with you by now. Where do you get horseradish to grow? You can buy it from a supermarket, or you you can't dig it up in the wild, but you might have it grown already on your farm. I'd be very surprised if it's not on your farm already, to be honest. But actually, no, because of the arsenic levels, you can get it from a supermarket, garden centre. Sorry. Oh yeah, or a plot neighbour was dividing hers. Perhaps do a calendar with photos from the group next year. Possible. That could be something we think about, but hard to do. Jenny hasn't had her seeds. Right. I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known because I always send them out. Cold soup, and this is Hartlepool. Catherine Tate. I've never watched the Catherine Tate show, so that's lost on me. Sorry, my recipe was split over 2 messages as this tablet decided to post half the message. I have a new iPad on order. I won't say what I have done today, but it was January Supporters Club seeds all in a spare room over the radiators. And Hargrave, my seeds arrived a week ago, I think. Yeah, they must be lost in the post because I post them all at the same time in one go. The post is really bad these days, considering the price they charge for stamp. Tell me about it. And they keep getting more and more expensive. Yeah, I think Royal Mail. They're doing Sunday deliveries now as well, so I thought they would be quicker. I meant saying, Scott says my seeds arrived about a week ago. Problem slow post after Xmas for others. They're slow and there's extremely slow. I had my seeds last week unless they were December's. No, they would have been. Yeah, and yeah. The royal fail. Rebecca says, got my seeds super early this month as well. Thank you. I always post them at the same time. So I always do them on the last day of the month they go in the post. So they're always sent at the same time. Jenny says, Richard, the floods may have a lot to do with it. I'll give it another week or so yet. Lots of main roads and train lines under water. Yeah. That could be causing problems, but even so, some have got them, some haven't. That annoys me. Second class has had a price freeze for a few years now. It hasn't for me. Hasn't. The price has gone up every year for second class large letter that I send out. Its price has gone up every single year. And it's a little bit annoying, to say the least. A little bit annoying. And it's so expensive. When I started, a second class large letter was 89p. And it's now £1.56 or something. It's like nearly 100% gone up. At Christmas, they said if posting 100 Christmas cards, cheaper to go to several countries, cheap, even including airfare. It's ridiculous. We're not going to get onto that. I'm going to keep my blood level pressures low. Chillyville seeds made it to us on the south coast about a week ago. We only get post every other day, but I have had mine. I think they came last Monday. So God knows what's going on. God knows what's going on. I keep my blood level low, but if anybody hasn't got theirs, let me know and I'll send them again. Digger second class large date £1.55, same as 223.24. Yeah, but when they were 89p a couple of years before that, it has gone up. May not have gone up in the last year. But I got a franking machine to make mine even cheaper, which helps. Stamps are a ridiculous price. Anyway, that's not really gardening. That's not what we're talking about, is it? We want to talk about gardening. What have we got? Just checking it over on Instagram. Nothing going on over there. As Turbo Stream, this week's garden subject is the cost of postage. It's ridiculous. I still think if stamp, I know I said we're going to move on from this topic, but I said if stamps were cheaper, more people would use them, making it more worthwhile. It is cheaper to take post by hand than it is. I think, I don't know if anybody works in the post office, so please don't take this as a dig at you, but if the price of stamps was cheaper, more people would use them, is all I'm going to say. Jenny says, we are near a risk to life flood areas, not had post for a few days. That might be why then. That might be why for you. Does explain everybody else. You need a rent section on this live stream to reduce your blood pressure. That's not a bad idea. Perhaps we can start adding a feature for the rent section. However, there was something, the mission as well. I haven't made a video this week because what I made is still dry. Now, the mission was to make a ladybird hotel, a ladybird house. And so what I came up with, I was trying to save on cutting wood. So I made this structure out of some of the scrap wood I had in my pile. And it was too large, in all honesty. As you can see on the bottom, which if I look at this thing here, you can see I've got several rows of cut bamboo canes, which I've glued into place using PVA glue. That glue is still dry nearly 24 hours later. But it gives you the idea. I think what we're going to do, we're going to add some more. Get rid of this. We're going to add some more bug hotels and things like that to that as well, just to make it a little bit, add more to it. So we do need, that is this week's mission. Mission accomplished or mission failed, up to you. And we need a mission for next week. I'm going to throw an idea for a mission that I could suggest, but of course it's up to you. So for me, the idea I have, does anybody have any of those plastic or rubber trugs that they use in the gardens? And what usually happens, or the most common thing to break on those, is the handles. So I'm going to throw out, suggest ways of repairing handles on those rubber trugs so that they are reusable as a mission. Of course, it's up to you. It's just that. And we could add this rant section. If anybody wants me to have a rant, what I could rant about. Got to be garden related though. But the rates have changed. Used to be different rates for 20, 60, 100 grams. Now 100 grams is the base rate. Yes. Yeah. 100 grams is the base rate. Again, I agree with you. Digwell, I don't mind paying 85p for a letter that can go from Penzance to Aberdeen in 2 days. Hope they do not fold and we are not forced to use City Post, etc. I still think if the price was just a little bit cheaper, more people would use it. That's all I'm going to say on that. 85p, I mean, I remember when stamps were like 50p, maybe even cheaper than that, 25p, thinking about it. I just think if they were cheaper, more people would use them. Excuse me. So Christmas cards, people were not sending Christmas cards this year because of the price of stamps. When Christmas cards are cheaper than the stamps, there's something wrong. Turbo Stream says, I have bus trugs, so yes to that one. And Jenny says, sounds like a good, useful mission. I was looking at a trolley for those trugs the other day. May treat myself. Okay. So the trugs, again, Jenny, please make a note of that and the recipe as well. The trug, I've got 3 of them with busted handles. So I can certainly show a few ways that I can come up with of repairing those handles that I can think for. Mission for next week, make a bird feeder. We are making them this week at school. All you need is pine cone lard and a handful of seeds. Well, that's another idea. It can go out there. Sounds like a good mission. Digwell says we need a rant for 10 minutes section on the week for the weekly show. I like this idea, but we need something in advance that we can rant about. But your 85p letter that takes more than 2 days, Digwell. They prioritize parcels make sense because there's more people sending parcels. Letters not so much these days because of email. But then doctors still send out letters. My payslip still comes through the post. So people are still sending letters. Got some 2.5 old pence stamps in the drawer. How far will they go? They won't go anywhere, I don't think. All noted down. What for this 10-minute, well, for this rant, what can we do as a rant for next week? Richard rants. Yeah, Richard rants. Please, Jenny, take note of Richard rants. I like that. I like that a lot. But what can I rant about? This is going to be another one I guess you can throw out to you. Or do I just come up with it on my own? I'm going to come up with it on my own. I'll think of something during the week to rant about. Save mine for another week. I will try to do a video this week and put it on the Facebook page after we finish them. Please do send us the video for the show as well. Bird feeder banned on our plot to discourage vermin. This is one of the problems with bird feeders and things like that. Bird feeders and bird flu can be a bit of a problem as well. So tools separate quickly as a rant. That's a good one, actually. I think I'm going to come up with a rant myself and surprise you all, but everything else, it's up to you to decide. Better court summons gets delivered promptly. Of course it would. Of course it would. Not sure if it's still true, but at one time stamps could be used as money. Think they could at one point, not anymore. Thank you, Jerry. Now, for next week's subjects, we are nearly at 7:30. I hope you've enjoyed this show tonight, and I like the fact that we're adding features in the future. But next week's subjects, I've got 3 choices that you can choose from. So, like tonight, where we discussed tomato varieties, I thought about doing the same for potato varieties because seed potatoes for sale at the moment. We've got another subject is to talk about grow lights and heated propagators, the uses, why we use them, and what's the point. And a third choice is greenhouse heating, how to heat a greenhouse and whether or not it's worth doing. So 3 choices, and it's up to you. Scott says peat-free compost, but that one will last longer than 10 minutes and open a can of worms. I don't mind opening a can of worms if we do it right. A very big can. There was a moratorium last year where you had to send your old stamps in to get the new barcoded ones. Definitives without barcodes cannot be used now. There we go. Stamp could be used as legal tender. Could be. Do I get a staff T-shirt? You are at this rate, I've got to say, Jenny, because you are a big help. Because I get annoyed taking notes while I'm trying to talk to you guys. I feel it's a bit rude and distracting. Love the potato idea. So we've got 1 vote for potato. Yes, it's been a fun evening to spend with you all. Thanks, Richard. Thank you very much, Andrew. Stuart says another great show. Seed potato varieties would be great ideas. I've not got mine yet. Nicholas says gone quick. Great show. So 2 votes at the moment for seed potatoes as we start wrapping up. Digwell says peat compost will be with us for years now as the bill has failed in Parliament. And there's another vote for seed potatoes, potato varieties. I think it looks like the seed potatoes is going to win. I think the other two subjects are going to be on the back foot. Rob says, well, it's gone quick. I think that always shows that it's been a good topic to discuss when it goes quick. That's what I always find anyway. And Scott says seed potatoes, good idea and great timing. And yes to tatties. If I am undecided if I will grow them. So it looks like we're going to be discussing seed potato varieties next week. That's good. That's good. So plenty of choice and plenty of things that we can do. I'm going to start this rent feature off as well. I'll have to find something to rent about. But thank you so much for joining me this week. It's been really good to see you all as always. Glad everyone is safe and keeping warm. We will be back again next Sunday at 6 where we're going to be discussing potatoes. We're going to be showing how to repair the handles on a truck And what other things are we going to do? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's all going to be written down. We will be back on next Sunday at 6 p.m. Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. But until next time, please take care.